Is this thing
Wow.
afternoon? I mistaking if you were
Idol, what are you doing?
It's been a heck of a week, Brad. Just
What
you know,
is-
tune in.
if you're a viewer,
Oh, this is my phone.
I'm
if you're a
glad
viewer
you're.
of the show, sorry that you got the live before the intro. I don't know what happened. It was just backwards. It has been a heck of a week, to say the least.
Why is everyone saying that?
Because I think everybody's just had a week, and so my head hurts today.
Oops.
I went to the gym 4 times. I skipped one day. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. Welcome, guys. Good morning,
You
good
skip
afternoon,
Monday?
good evening, and good night.
Did you skip Monday?
I skipped Wednesday, unfortunately.
Fucking loser. That probably explains your general look today. Skipping that one day. You look a little bigger, not in like a muscular way, but
Anyway, how are you guys doing? What's going on? You ready for the weekend? You ready for this show to get started? We've got a lot of exciting topics to talk about today. Might get a little contentious, so bear with us. I think, with the topics, usually I think out of the 3 of us, Michael's usually the most mild. Today might not be the case, but we'll see what happens. So
I don't know if I've ever been described as mild. I think that says more about the dynamic between you two than maybe it says about me, but we shall see.
That is probably
I'm going to get
true.
fired up.
I'm usually just a mess. Brad, we all know, and and so
what the fuck do we know, Charles?
He seems to be in good spirits this morning.
I'm not, but I'm happy to be here.
Good. That's all that matters. So some of the topics we're covering today, just so people get a general overview, there's been a heck of a week in the news. I mean, Tucker Carlson has been making news all week. The DOJ started making some news later in the week. We've got some stuff to talk about, the ghettoization of Texas or of Texas cities. We're going to find out which Texas city is the most ghetto. The Waltz family, or Walls, if you are pronouncing it correctly, because there's no T, and the high-speed rail conversation. Anyway, so let's jump in. Let's get the most contentious topic out of the way first, right? So I think it's in my opinion, it's probably the Tucker Carlson conversation. And I missed a topic. We're supposed to talk about the music industry demonic. I think we're supposed to talk about that too.
You missed my tweet in your travels.
Oh.
I tweeted Operation Red Pill Charles is almost complete. Tune into the show to see which topic.
Thing? Well, it is. It is. I think I might be convinced after the happenings of this week. So, Brad, if you could cue that up for later in the show.
What am I queuing up?
That video. I mean, and it's for later in the show, but that video I sent.
I got it.
One of our favorite artists doing. Okay.
No one's favorite artist. Don't ever associate me with that person ever.
I said one of anyway, so as we know, or as many of you may know, Tucker Carlson had a interview out this week, and it was quite the interview, if I do say so myself. For those who don't know, Tucker Carlson used to be a Fox television host, and now he hosts his own show on the Tucker Carlson network as well as on X. And he has a tendency of bringing on very controversial, I think, guests. I would you guys agree? I would assume so. This week, he brought on...
That you wanted us to answer, or?
Controversial
Sure, go ahead.
to who? Controversial to whom?
Occasionally they're controversial. Occasionally they're not. I mean, I don't know. And I disagree with the controversy around them sometimes.
Okay, but I wasn't asking if you disagree with the controversy around them. I said, are they controversial?
Yeah, it's kind of important, but go on.
Anyway, so this week he brought on a fella by the name of Daryl Cooper. Daryl Cooper is he hosts a podcast. It's called Martyr Made. It's and he co-hosts The Unraveling with Jocko Willink, and neither of which I have listened to, so I can't really talk much about them. But he focuses on 20th century Western history. I think some people consider him a historian-ish. I guess, Michael, I think you do know more about him than I do. Is that correct, or am I wrong? No. Okay.
No.
Okay. So he had this guest on, and the conversation was seemingly wide ranging. But the big part of the conversation that I think made a lot of news, or that we know made a lot of news, was the part surrounding World War II. They talked about Jonestown. They talked about a whole host of things, but pretty much the World War II portion of that conversation really made news. Some outtakes from that, and on that, the World War II portion made news, and then there have been a lot of kind of right wing folks, mouthpieces, people with platforms who've come out in opposition to it. Sebastian Gorka. Elon Musk did not come out in opposition, but he did put a screenshot of the tweet that had the interview, and it had a community note on it saying that some of the stuff was incorrect. And Elon Musk said, community note strikes again. Jordan Schachtel, Seth Dillon. So some people have come out criticizing the interview. And I think the biggest part that they've criticized has been his framing of Winston Churchill's role in World War II. A quote that comes out of it that he said was, let's see, where is it? That Winston Churchill, I don't even know where I put the quote at. Was not necessarily the good guy. And he was the chief villain of World War II. And so that caught a lot of heat. One other quote.
He said he could be considered the chief villain. Maybe he said he is the chief villain.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could be considered the chief villain of World War II. A quote that I thought was interesting and didn't really fully understand was from Tucker, where it said, if Churchill is a hero, how come there are British girls begging for drugs on the streets of London, and the place, comma, is not majority English anymore? And so, what are your guys' takes on the interview and if you haven't watched the interview, just on some of the outtakes of it, but also of the conversation surrounding it?
Shall I go first? Did you guys watch it?
I listened, but I think I'm just past the Nazi stuff, I think. So I'm not done with the whole thing, but I got past that part.
Got it.
So I did not watch the whole thing. I watched the segment on World War II because that was the one that I wanted to talk to, which started at around like 32 minutes.
So he prefaced the interview saying that this guy is like the most important historian in the country, and then they said, we're going to get into some topics that are going to trigger a bunch of people, and they're going to start casting aspersions around at us about being anti-Semitic and being called all the words that they can think of to call us. And predictably, they talked about some things, and that's exactly what happened. Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because his point was like questioning Churchill's, like, I'm not a World War II historian. I'm not a Holocaust historian. I'm just a guy with a microphone and some headphones. And I watched it and I was like, okay, he's, challenging the traditional narrative around Winston Churchill and his role in World War II and what his motivations are. Okay, that seems fine to me. I don't, when the guy Daryl Cooper was talking about things, he was citing historical documents. It wasn't like he was stating his opinion about things. He was citing, for example, this is kind of off topic, but let's go to Winston Churchill. He was citing other people's writings about Winston Churchill. He wasn't talking about his opinion of Winston Churchill. And I just found it funny that immediately after this interview dropped, people from all over the place, especially in the establishment, started going crazy, calling him anti-Semitic and a Holocaust denier. And I'm like, I was talking to these guys on Twitter who were clearly upset about this. I was like, can you just pull me the quote where he denies the Holocaust? Which they couldn't do because he doesn't deny the Holocaust. I am of opinion that in this world, words have meaning. Holocaust denier is a very specific term. It doesn't mean that you say Winston Churchill was a villain and therefore you are a Holocaust denier. I didn't hear in that interview anywhere where that guy denied the Holocaust. I think what he said was Winston Churchill was not as great of a figure as we talk about him. And I think the quote that pissed a bunch of people off is when Germany invaded to the east in 1941. They're talking about June 1941 when Germany and Russia split up Poland, and then Germany invaded Russia. They had a bunch of people that they took as prisoners of war. Some of them are Russians, some of them are Jews, bunch of people, right? Prisoners of war. And he read a historical document where a German general was like, what do we do with all these people? Maybe it would be better if we just killed them all so they don't die of starvation. This is what the document said. I don't know if that's what they decided or if that was the motivation or if that removes Hitler's motivation to kill Jews. The two things can exist at the same time, but it's not a denial of the Holocaust. So typically when I see these things and I see reactions like this, it makes my ears perk up because I'm like, why is everybody reacting this way? To what I found, and I'm a pretty reasonable person, is just, okay, he's saying some things that I didn't know, or I don't, I can't say they're true or not, but it doesn't make me upset.
So I think quick, because I looked it up because I wanted to make sure that what I said before was correct. So from the transcript, it does say, I can't remember what before that he said, trying to provoke him a bit, that I thought Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War. Now, he didn't kill the most people. He didn't commit the most atrocities, but I believe, and I don't really think that when you really get into it and tell the story right and don't leave anything out, you see that he was primarily responsible for that war becoming what it did, becoming something other than invasion of Poland.
And he's saying, and I'm not vouching for this. I'm just
no. I wasn't. This wasn't to you. This was to Brad before to clarify about what the transcript said.
Yeah, and I'm not vouching for this statement. I'm saying this is what Daryl Cooper said. He said that Hitler, after the invasion of Poland, reached out to the Brits for peace deals. I don't know if that's true or not. Somebody go look it up. I don't know. And that Churchill didn't want peace. That's what he's saying. Is it true? I don't know. Maybe not.
I think that it's true in the sense that Hitler had like radio broadcasts and stuff like that calling for peace, that they didn't want war. Whether he acted that way outside of the radio broadcast and whether he actually wanted that is probably a different question. And Daryl Cooper using this as source material, saying that it could have gone a different way, I think is interesting. And I'll say it, I've said it a million times, I'll say it a million more. And I think it's always important to remember that the government is not in the habit of telling you the truth. And if everyone knows that the winners are the writers of history, right? So he's giving people a different perspective, and I don't know what his true beliefs are. I'm sure if we had a conversation with him, he might say something. We could ask him to go into more detail about why he believes some of these things. We're not Tucker Carlson, and unfortunately, we don't have the following to have him on this show. But maybe one day, keep subscribing and sharing with friends, right? So I also do not take it as like he doesn't believe that Hitler was evil. I think he even says that Hitler was not good, not a good person. What he did was bad. And the reason why he was saying that Churchill, because he believes, and historians will disagree, as they have many times, very publicly and vocally over the past couple of weeks, and non-historians as well, that Churchill couldn't have done anything to stop this, and he's not a bad guy. He's the savior of the West, or yada yada yada, whatever. Right? I think that us arguing about whether Daryl Martyrmade is correct or not is probably useless because none of us are World War II historians. But can he say these things? Absolutely. Is it interesting? Absolutely. Now it's upon me and all of our listeners, and which certainly are legion compared to Tucker Carlson's listeners, to go out there and sort of like, oh, well, I didn't know that Hitler made these broadcasts. What's the deal with that? What is the true story here? This is not going to change the trajectory of anything. Like, Israel is still going to be our greatest ally. Holocaust it's going to be taught in schools, and it should be, right? So it's not like this is, I think, more about free speech than anything else.
Well, no, I don't think it's about free speech because no one's trying to use government to silence his speech. They're saying you're wrong, you're wildly wrong. No one's calling for him to be deplatformed or anything. I mean, some people I'm sure are, but most of the major voices aren't. I think the problem is that he's not a historian either. He's regurgitating history that he has read. He's not going to source documents and saying this is what this is. I mean, that's what
he did go to source documents a lot
who
on
does
this stuff.
Daryl Cooper.
Oh yeah, he does.
Okay, well maybe he does, but then I don't know where the incorrect stuff comes from. Because so like a lot of the stuff that he talks about isn't kind of like niche World War II history. It's stuff that generally speaking people are aware of. So like even going back to the radio broadcast where he called for speech, that was the one that got community noted the most because it's well documented that by the time that Hitler had that broadcast, he had already invaded Poland and France. And they already broken treaties and they were killing Jews and Poles. So by going on the radio appealing for the greater good when you're already doing this, you can't. And then the other part of that is we might not have, the deep details of everything he was saying, but nothing that he was saying is stuff that he has not put out there before. So like he has a thread on his Twitter where the top of the thread, and this was from the start of the month, before he went on, and this might have been why he got asked to come on Tucker, that says, time for a Churchill thread, why I think Churchill was a chief villain of World War II. And then it's like a 30, 40 tweet thread where he goes on talking about why he thinks Churchill was a chief villain of World War II. And, and then there are other things like, I don't know this man enough to say whether he's anti-Semitic or not, but there's so much that he has put out there that there are few things which you can infer, in my opinion, other than there may be a dislike for Jewish people. The tweet that I sent in the group where I think we had a disagreement over what it meant, where it says, if you're having a bad day, just remember that the Trump shooter is currently wandering around hell looking for Hitler, while the two guys Kyle Rittenhouse dropped figure out how to break the news to him. That he's whether he's saying it in a joking fashion or not, he's very clearly saying that Hitler's not in hell and he's in heaven.
Yeah, but I don't know the context of that tweet. Yeah, should he tweet that? Probably not. Does that make him anti-Semitic? Maybe. I don't know. But does that? I'm not going to ascribe a character evaluation on this guy because I don't, based on one tweet that he sent. And was he trying to do engagement farming by tweeting out something very controversial so people start who knows what his intention was there. In the interview I listened to, which is my only exposure to this guy, I did not get any sense of that the man was anti-Semitic. And I thought that his main criticism was of Winston Churchill primarily.
I agree. I think the reason people went from the interview to anti-Semitic was by saying that you think Winston Churchill was the chief villain significantly minimizes Hitler's role, which would then lead people to believe that you're anti-Semitic. Then when you go and you look at the broader context of like all of his stuff out there, like even so you guys remember the opening ceremony of the Olympics with the crop.
I thought it was beautiful and very well done.
Anyway, with those people, so
What do
he
you mean,
posted
those people. Excuse
the
me,
drag
Charles.
queens, with the drag queens. Okay,
Ugh.
he posted a side by side.
You know what? This is disgusting, Charles.
He posted a side by side of Hitler and his lieutenants in front of the Eiffel Tower to that, saying in the text, "This may be putting it too crudely for some, but the picture on the left, Hitler and his lieutenants, was infinitely preferable in virtually every way than the one on the right," which was the opening. So like when after a certain while, when you start looking at all of the things, they may be joking, some of them may not be, but it's hard to not infer that that's what someone believes when there's a constant theme here of those kind of things. Now, I don't know who the guy is. I'm not going to go listen to him. I don't really care if he is anti-Semitic or not. Our discussion in our chat was completely different from this. My frustration was with Tucker Carlson's changed throughout the years in terms of kind of what he believes and the audience he's going after. Then it happened to be on the same day as this, and then we started talking about this. But
for those that don't know, Charles admitted to being a raging progressive who hates Tucker Carlson.
Well, listen, no, I'm not a fan. I'm not particularly a fan of Tucker Carlson.
Yeah,
but
you're a raging YIMBY progressive. It's fine.
It must be. So I don't know. I just think that on the whole, his posts, his commentary, and his writings lead me to believe that he does not seemingly like Jewish people. And I'm not talking about Tucker Carlson. I'm talking about Daryl Cooper. But I also understand, Michael, that you shouldn't jump to conclusions.
Well, it's not that I mean, maybe you're right. I don't really know. I didn't look into him that much. My biggest takeaway from this whole thing is like Tucker, by having him on, scratched on an untouchable topic that we've seen this kind of reaction to many things before in the past. It's the same reaction. Those topics don't always include the Holocaust or Jewish people. They include the COVID vaccine or a number of different topics that you're just not allowed to air a different perspective. And if you do, everybody starts digging around in your Twitter to find things that they can character assassinate you with, and then start screaming about how terrible of a person you are because you touched this topic that you're not allowed to touch. And that's the dynamic that I see happening. All the details about what he believes, I don't really know, but there was certainly a backlash that I've seen similar to other untouchable topics. And that one thing that all history always shows on those untouchable topics, the official story is a lie. So what lie are they trying to cover up is my instinct about it. Was Churchill a bad guy? I don't know, and don't have an opinion about it.
I mean, Churchill and Hitler can both be bad,
Totally.
right? I mean, I'm not a historian, so it's sort of dumb to like argue about the accuracy of his historical perspective, but do I think it's plausible or possible that Churchill could have done something differently, like avoided the war altogether, and in that sense also maybe avoid the Holocaust of the Jews? I think I don't know. I would have to look into it, but it sounds maybe possible. Does that make him the chief villain of the war? I don't know. I don't think I would agree with that, but I can see someone's like their logical progression that they're going through to get to that conclusion.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Is that crazy?
I mean, I can see his like what I understand. Like I can see his progression of his argument. Like I can write it down and see how he went from point A to B to C to D to E. I just don't agree with it. I don't know. I mean, I am also probably the least one in this group to have an affinity for questioning the narrative of historical events, I guess you could say.
Okay, it's interesting.
How's that interesting?
I mean, I that's just interesting. I think that, I mean, maybe that's correct. Maybe Michael and I are more skeptical of historical events.
I mean, I think so.
I still don't understand how passports survived. I just don't know. Right? I don't get it. How they melt steel beams, but not paper passports. I don't understand. And I would love someone to explain it to me.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, the whole thing's interesting. My point, though, I think it goes to what you were saying, Michael, about Tucker saying he's going to kind of push the needle and then everybody reacts. That's my point about him, is that this interview, I'm certain he's been aware of this guy. This interview would not have happened had he still had his Fox show. I feel like he has changed. I feel like he changes to appease whatever kind of the issue of the day or whatever the temperament of the day of the base is, because that's what keeps him at the top of the game, if you will. That's what keeps him with the most viewers. That's what keeps him incredibly relevant. It's why he went and did that Zen thing with those kids. It's why it just seems like every time
he does love
it seems like every time he sees the tide turning, he's like, let me get ahead of this so that I can kind of benefit from it. Now, I don't know if that's true, if he feels, I don't know, but that's just how it feels.
I disagree on Tucker, but we can move on. I think it's genuine. I think, because I used to hate Tucker when he was on Crossfire and defending the Iraq War and all this stuff. I think he's had a genuine change of perspective, and I've spent probably too many hours listening to him, and I just think he had a change of mind, and now all these doors are opening up to him, whether it's aliens or whatever, and he's interested. And this is another rabbit hole to go down, the official story of World War II. Because what we found is the official story often has things that are incorrect in inside of the story. So what about it is incorrect, and what can we learn from investigating it? I don't know the answer to that, but I think he's genuinely curious rather than
Okay. Brad, anything left? We're going to move on to the next.
Anything left? I mean, I'm just really, I know that this is going to create some beef between you two, and I just love to see it. I'm tired of
beef between me and Michael, maybe me and you, but
that's what I'm saying. This is going to create beef between the two of you. I love to see it. I'm tired of being the only one with beef with Charles, but so it's good to see that, you two are going to beef a little bit. I will happily pick a side. I don't know which side yet, but I will happily do it, and I am accepting bids.
Well, my bid starts at 0, so pick Michael's side.
I will burn this podcast to the ground.
My bid is also 0.
All right, watch it burn, fellas.
Shifting. I want to talk a bit about the Walls family. And
Walls.
If people have not seen this, Tim Walls is distant relative. Well, I think actually one was his brother, and the rest of them are
not distant. It's his Nebraska family.
Well, I think it's his brother. I think the other ones are like cousins and stuff, and aunts or whatever. I don't know, but
I've talked to your cousins, and they have quite a bit to say.
Anyway,
Tim Walls' grandfather had a brother. This is his family.
Okay, that's distant. That's distant. If anybody has a picture handy, that would be great. But if not, I'll just describe it. His family.
I got it. You don't describe it. This is a podcast. People are listening. No one wants to listen to a description. Go ahead. Keep going. I'll pull it up.
If this is a podcast and people are listening,
I will pull it up. No one wants to listen to a description of a picture.
All right, whatever. My question with this is, what do you think about people coming out against their family members who are running for office or who maybe are prominent figures in such a direct way, right? I mean, first of all, clearly the apostrophe should not be there, and that's really annoying. But I am very curious what you guys think about this.
I didn't notice the apostrophe until you just pointed it out. That's kind of funny. It's meaningless to me. I didn't like it when Kennedy's family all penned that letter saying he's crazy, and this is like, yeah, okay, you like Trump, that's great, me too, but it's not any more meaningful than any other voter who says they like Trump over Walls.
I think this is significantly different than the Kennedy family. The Kennedy family has repeatedly come out against their brother and said bad things, I think, and accused him this is just a picture of the Walls family. I don't know. I haven't seen them. Maybe they've come out and said, he actually did drink that gallon, or whatever the case may be. I don't know, but I'm sort of torn here, right? Because Walls is the most progressive vice presidential candidate we've ever had. And he's downright communist, I've heard. And so it's good that the family is coming out like this guy wants to oppress us. He's a communist, correct? Thank you. And so he wants to oppress us. He wants to use the power of the state to oppress us. There's also the other side of you always support your family. And if you can't say something nice about your family, just don't say anything. Right. That's what Miss Blaine texts me all the time. And I'm sort of torn here. Right.
Well, one, I don't know that they said all that. I think they just put the shirts on and went and took a picture. I think that's what
I said. I mean, that's what I mean. They don't have to say that part. I can say that part because it's true that he's the most progressive vice presidential candidate in our history. I think, and that he's a communist.
The point is,
I don't know about the gallon. I don't know. I think maybe it was a quart, but it could have been a gallon.
What I think is that it's tacky. I think it's tacky. I mean, if this is your family member, family should always come before politics. It's stupid. What does this do? I don't think this actually convinces anyone to not vote for your family member. Sure, it says something about you and about. I think it says more about the person wearing the shirt than about the family member in most instances. And also, I don't like how it just feeds into, because all you saw was a bunch of conservative political talk heads sharing it and feeding off of it. It's you're kind of selling your family drama for political purposes and not actually getting anything for it either. Like not even making a quick buck.
They are getting talked about on the BCM podcast.
But that's who we should have
Don't
had for guests today.
That would have
Don't
been
we all have family members who would oppose us running for office because we have differing points?
Not
of view?
publicly.
Yeah, not publicly, because I'm not the most progressive vice presidential candidate ever.
Brad, would you?
They
like to
probably
talk
wouldn't
about
vote
that?
for me, but they wouldn't. I don't know that they'd go and put on a shirt and be like, "I'm."
Would I like to talk about it? No, because it's true. So I would actually like to ask, and since we're talking about families and people's family members coming out and talking about their siblings or relatives running for office, there is one prominent that we have failed to mention in this conversation, and that is Malik Obama. And I'm just curious if people have thoughts about Malik and all of the beans he spilled about his brother.
Is that guy even real? Like,
Is he real? I believe Black Voices.
I've never paid 1 cent of attention to Malik. I see the tweets every now and then, but I don't. I mean, I don't know.
I'm not.
He has a book called Big Bad Brother from Kenya.
Wow.
Now, I don't know what the implication is. Perhaps someone can explain it to me, but I feel like maybe he's saying that there's a Kenya connection.
Well, yes. I mean, Malik Obama was born and raised in Kenya, and the assertion has been that Barack Obama, well, not the some people, some fringe people have said that Barack Obama was born in Kenya.
Fringe people? I don't think it's so fringe.
His brother?
His brother seems
His
very...
brother has said a lot of crazy things on the internet.
Seems like if anybody's going to know, it's his brother.
Of all people, I didn't even know who this guy was.
How do you not know who Malik
I'm surprised
Obama
you didn't.
That blows me away.
I didn't do the birtho thing, so I don't.
Yeah, he didn't do it. Yeah, okay.
He's Obama's half brother.
Charles, he voted against him for other reasons.
So that wraps up the family. Oh, but yeah, that wraps up the family conversation. So before we had to go back to the previous conversation though, because we didn't talk about the DOJ stuff. That was supposed to be in that segment. So if people haven't seen, the DOJ came out with some, I guess there were, I don't know if it was actual indictments or what, investigation into Lauren Chen and another young woman who run this group called Tenet Media, and essentially they were serving as intermediaries for Russia, getting money and then hiring prominent conservative figures, Benny Johnson, the guy with the R name, I can't think of what it is.
Dave Rubin, Tim Pool.
Yeah,
Dave
these
Rubin.
folks. And now those folks are saying they're victims after having collected millions of dollars, and they're saying that they were duped and, they didn't know where this money was coming from, which I don't know. I think that's kind of weird. Don't you ask or don't you look into it? I mean, you just ask. Somebody comes and wants to give you millions of dollars and you don't ask where it's coming from. I think that's a little strange.
I mean, if someone's sponsoring, like if someone came to the podcast, to this podcast, I don't know, Russia wanted to come to this and they gave money to somebody else to do like, all right, here's a great podcast, the BCM podcast, right? We're going to give you $10 million and you're going to give $1 million of it to them. Don't say that you're from Russia. Don't say that it's coming from us, right? I don't think I would ask, where did you get this money? Why would I ask that? You want to sponsor it? You have like a legitimate LLC. You're a legitimate person. Where'd you get this money from? And like whatever story they have is probably going to be pretty believable. Oh, I made it in real estate. I don't know, fucking whatever the hell. Is it really like you gotta like? I don't think it's that crazy that they wouldn't have known.
I do. I mean, I think if somebody's giving you that kind of money, you try to find out how their company makes revenue. I would want to figure that out. And I would also look and see if
give us $1 million. I'm not going to look at their revenue. All right.
Well,
give us
maybe this should be a cautionary tale that you do, because this is
I'm good.
And I would also try to figure out, does this person have a background? Have they been in conservative media? Where are they got? Like, I would do some research. Am I going to go and do like an FBI investigation? No. Can I still get duped? Yes. But I would try to do a little bit of research. And when it came out, I don't know, like now they're saying they're victims. There's calls for giving money back. They don't want to give the money back.